I'm glad you got a tank of shears, this little thing, the Conair Pro 6-inch pre-haircut shear. And I wanted to run through the features of it and talk a little bit about safety, how you can handle it the safe way. So first, the features. Rounded tips will, let me just show you this way. The rounded tips will make it extremely hard to hurt the doggy. You really have to try, and most of us are not trying that hard to hurt them. We are doing everything we can to keep them safe, so poking the doggy will not really cause any kind of trouble. I highly recommend to everyone who is going to handle this little thing to poke themselves, yourself, your hand, all over, so you get a sensation, an idea. How does it feel when the tip of the shear touches the skin? With a lot of hair on, it's gonna be even less of a sensation, so I want you to keep that in mind, that in case you touch a doggy with this one, I want your mind and senses to get comfortable with it so you won't freak out, because once we feel comfortable, the doggy will pick up the energy and they will be way more cooperative. It's just like when you are talking to a doctor and you see the confidence in them, and whenever they are hesitating, whatever they are talking about, you're like, oh my God, I need a new doctor. So it's the same with doggies. You just want to make sure and train your mind to know how does it feel, so you won't freak out when it comes to you accidentally touching your doggy with the tip of the shear. The other thing about safety is you want to hold the shear in a way that it's gonna be steady when you cut. You don't want anything which is like wiggling around and jiggling around. You always want to know where this line is. So to practice that and to reach that, I asked you to order, or suggested to order, a shear which has a finger rest. That's critical, and I want you to use it. The way I prefer to hold my shears, and you can figure out the way you like it the best, but I'm just gonna tell you what works for me. I put my fingers in the shear this way. Now, the thumb holder is a little bit bigger for me, but I'm used to it the way it is now, and I don't mind it for the pre-haircut shears. On my haircut shears, since I really want to focus on the look, with this one, we are just doing functionality and comfort. With my thinning shears, I have little finger rings. Let me just fetch one for you so you're gonna see. This guy has this black thing. It's a finger ring. And this one even has two. Actually, this one has one, yes. So this one has two, a black one and a clear one. So you can get these, but I could not make them fit this guy, so I'm just like winging it with this. So you want to keep the shear nice and steady. I want you to practice this. So whenever you are cutting, you're not like this. It takes a little bit of practice, but given the shear has rounded tips, not like these guys, and the two parts of the shear are not that sharp. They will cut the hair perfectly, but in case you squeeze something, anything, you're not gonna cut it. It's only when you squeeze it and pull it. I'm not gonna try this. If you squeeze and pull, that's gonna hurt, even on the doggy. So you don't want that, but even if you squeeze, it's not gonna hurt. So the thing about this is I want you to practice this with a piece of, let me kill one of my business cards. So I want you to practice to cut, and I want you to practice to cut where you want to cut. So in case you want to cut an itty bitty off of the piece of piece of paper, then you can. If you want to go deeper, if you want to go halfway only, I want you to practice these without the doggy, because I want you to get the confidence and project the confidence to the dog that you're okay with using these and you know what you're doing. So practice this holding technique. Make sure that you are cutting in one line. It's not just like all over the place. And I even recommend you to cut a piece of hair off of your doggy, or if you want, I can mail you a bunch of hair. I have quite a lot. And practice the sensation, how it feels to cut the coat. That way, when you are cutting it while it's on the doggy, then it's gonna be easier. If you cut off one piece of hair, make sure that, let's say this is the doggy's skin, there is the piece of hair, and then you want to put your hands between the skin and the bunch of hair you want to cut off and cut it. This way you're gonna be able to keep the doggy safe until you practice, and later on you don't have to do that little trick unless you're working on tricky spots like crazy tight mats. But for now, keeping it nice and safe. This way you're gonna be able to, this is the holding technique again, you're gonna be able to keep the shear in one spot. That's the major, most critical thing, to know where the shear is working and to keep it where you want to work with it. So I'd recommend you to practice it. And one more critical thing. I see this all the time with beginners, and I did the same thing. It's super important. Safety, shear safety. When you are not working with the shear, carve it in your mind that you have to keep it closed, like this. You put it down closed, like that. Everything, both of the thingies are joined, connected, whatnot. You put them down like that, away from the doggy. You're not pointing it anywhere. If you have a large enough table, you can keep it in one spot. If you have a tiny table, you want to keep it either on yourself or on a different type of table, like a rolling thingy where you put it on where the doggy won't step on. And keep it closed. Even in case you're moving it around the doggy, it's always closed. You open it only the teeny tiny amount you are working on. For example, when you are cutting turkey, it's okay, I know. So in case you want, let's say if you want to cut off this corner here, I'm gonna come a little closer. So if you want to cut off this corner here, you want to open up the shear to this much. You're not cutting hair like this way, because the more you open the shear, the bigger the chance of hurting the dog. Wiggling ear coming that way, or tail, or dew claw, whatnot. No, you just open it up to the teeny tiny spot you are trying to cut off. That's it. It's super, super important. It's a basic thing. One thing is holding the shear nice and firm with the nice, best holding technique, at least for me, and you can figure out what works for yourself. Some people hold it, I guess, this way. I don't know. This is my favorite one, and this is the firmest I can hold a shear. So this holding technique, opening it just enough so you're gonna be able to cut the line you want to cut. That's it, not like this. And we are always keeping the shear closed. Whenever we are not using it, figuring out whether to trim this part or that spot, keep it closed. You know what you want to cut, then you open it up just the little bit that you need it, cut and keep it closed again, and think. And then once you figured out what's next, then you can open it up again and do it again. So that's my 2 cents about shear safety. Let's jump in and see how you hold the doggy's feet and how you squeeze this little thingy in the pads.